An officer thought it was just another patrol on a lonely forest road until he found a starving German shepherd curled around her 4 puppies and a human newborn crying beside them. Nothing could prepare him for what this discovery uncovered. Where did the baby come from? Who left him there to die? And how did this mother dog manage to keep him alive all night in the freezing cold? What the investigation revealed shook the entire town and exposed a truth far darker than anyone imagined. Stay with me till the end, because this is one story you'll never forget. If you're ready for this unbelievable journey, do me one favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Alright, let us begin. Officer Daniel Mercer had been driving slowly along the narrow forest road just outside Pine Hollow, the kind of quiet Oregon town where the trees whispered louder than the people. His patrol SUV crawled forward as he scanned the shadows for any sign connected to the missing persons report he'd been working on all week. It was just past dawn, a pale grey light slipping between the pines, the air cold enough to sting his lungs. He was about to radio in when something moved near the ditch. At first he thought it was just a bundle of leaves, but then a weak, trembling whine cut through the silence. Daniel hit the brakes so hard, the seatbelt snapped against his chest. On the damp forest floor lay a starving German shepherd, her ribs sharp under her matted fur. She was curled protectively around 4 small puppies, all pressed against her like she was the only warm thing left in the world. But that wasn't what froze Daniel in place. Just inches from the mother dog, wrapped in a thin plaid cloth, was a newborn baby, barely hours old, crying, shaking, desperately waving tiny fists in the cold air. Daniel's heartbeat thundered. He jumped out of the car, boots crunching on wet gravel, hands shaking as he approached the surreal, impossible scene. "Easy, girl, easy," he whispered, lowering himself slowly. The mother dog didn't growl. She didn't back away. She just stared at him with hollow, exhausted eyes, almost as if she had been waiting for him. Daniel touched the baby's cheek. Ice cold. Oh God. He wrapped the child in his jacket, pulling it close to his chest. The baby quieted, breathing against the warmth. He looked back at the dog. "I'm not leaving you," he said softly. "Any of you." Within minutes, he had the mother dog and her puppies loaded carefully into the back of his SUV. The dog rested her head on the cardboard box he had found in his trunk, too weak to lift it for long. The baby, swaddled against his chest, let out a tiny whimper that made Daniel's throat tighten. As he raced toward town, his mind spun with questions, none of them with answers. Who abandoned a newborn in the woods? How did a starving dog keep a human baby alive all night? And most disturbing of all, why was the cloth wrapped around the infant, the exact pattern described in last week's unresolved emergency call, the one where a woman screamed before the line abruptly cut out? By the time Daniel reached Pine Hollow Veterinary Clinic, the baby's breathing had steadied, but the dog collapsed the moment he lifted her from the SUV. Inside, the vets rushed to save her, while Daniel radioed dispatch with trembling fingers. He handled murders, kidnappings, and disappearances, but never a case that began with a newborn and a dying dog lying together in a forest clearing. As he sped toward the police station with the baby in his arms, he couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't a rescue. It was the beginning of something much darker. By the time Daniel pulled into the Pine Hollow Police Department lot, the baby had fallen into an uneasy sleep against his chest. The station sat low against the grey morning sky. Brick walls streaked dark from years of Oregon rain. As soon as he stepped out of the SUV, The cold air bit his face and the tiny body in his arms shivered. "Somebody get EMS in here. Now!" Daniel shouted as he pushed through the glass doors. Officers turned. Conversations died. Coffee cups froze halfway to lips. Nobody was prepared to see their most stoic patrol officer from night shift walk in, holding a newborn like it was the only fragile thing left in the world. Officer Carla Reeves was the first to reach him, her dark hair pulled back, eyes wide. "Danny, what the hell?" "Found him in the woods," Daniel said, his voice rough, "with a German shepherd and 4 puppies." "In the woods?" Carla blinked. "Like abandoned?" "Yeah. Wrap room." "Now." They hurried into the small first aid room near booking. The air smelled like antiseptic and old bandages. A dispatcher who doubled as an EMT on slow nights rushed in with a pediatric kit, hands already gloved. Daniel laid the baby gently on the examination cot. The infant's skin was pale, lips a faint bluish color, but the chest was moving steadily now, tiny breaths pressing against the too thin cloth. "How old do you think?" Carla whispered. "Hours," Daniel said. "Maybe a day at most." The EMT, Greg, checked the baby's temperature, pupils, heart rate. "Cold but stable," he muttered. "This kid should be hypothermic or worse. Whatever kept him warm out there probably saved his life." Daniel didn't have to say it out loud. They all knew who he meant. The dog. Within minutes, an ambulance was there. A paramedic took the baby, hooking him up to a tiny oxygen tube as they loaded him into the rig. Daniel stood there for a moment, watching the doors close, feeling something twist in his chest. The last time he'd watched a tiny body disappear into an ambulance, it had been his own daughter. He blinked hard, forcing the memory away. Not now. Not here. Mercer. The voice came from behind him, sharp, measured. Captain Eleanor Ramirez. Her presence had a way of cooling a room, and right now her eyes were locked on the empty doorway where the paramedics had just disappeared. "You want to explain why there is a newborn in my station at 6:30 in the morning?" she asked quietly. Daniel straightened. "Found him off Forest Route 9, about a mile past the turnoff. There was a German shepherd there. She looks like she's been starving for weeks. 4 puppies. The baby was lying right next to them, wrapped in a cloth. No adults in sight." Ramirez studied his face, searching for any sign he was exaggerating. She found none. "You were out there following up on that missing person case?" "Yes, ma am." The 911 call from Tuesday, the woman screaming before the line cut. Ramirez crossed her arms. "You think this is connected?" Daniel swallowed. The baby was wrapped in fabric that matches the description the caller gave. The plaid cloth around something she wouldn't let go of. Ramirez's jaw clenched. "All right, I want that scene locked down. We were not treating this like a random abandonment. This is a crime scene. Get forensics out there. Photos, tire tracks, footprints, everything, and find out what the hell that dog was doing there." Carla cleared her throat. "I can head to the vet clinic, Captain. Check on the dog and puppies. They'll probably run a microchip scan." "Do it," Ramirez said. Then to Daniel, "You're a lead on this. But I need you thinking like a detective, not like a grieving father." The words landed heavier than she meant them to. Daniel's gaze flicked up, and for a split second, something old and painful moved behind his eyes. He said nothing, just nodded once. "Yes, ma am." The forest looked even colder when Daniel returned, this time with a forensics unit and crime scene tape cutting through the pines. What had seemed surreal earlier now looked clinical. Yellow markers dotted the damp ground where technicians had found impressions and items in the dirt. "Mercer!" One of the techs, Tony, called out, crouching near the ditch. Check this out. Daniel knelt beside him. There, near the spot where he'd found the dog, was a dark stain on the packed earth, washed slightly by dew, but still visible. Blood. Already testing it, Tony said. 2 sets of boot prints, maybe 3. Some smaller prints too. And tire treads, pickup truck, judging by the width. Looks like someone pulled over, stayed a while, then left in a hurry. Daniel's eyes followed the tracks, mapping out the story in his head. A vehicle stopping at the turnoff, people getting out, something happening that ended with a newborn on the ground and the dog curled around him. And this, Tony added, holding up a plastic evidence bag. Inside was a scrap of torn fabric, same plaid pattern as the cloth the baby had been wrapped in. Only this piece had a faint dark smear and what looked suspiciously like the corner of a clothing tag. Daniel's stomach tightened. Any writing on the tag? Half of a logo, Tony said. Looks like part of a hospital name. We'll enhance it back at the lab. Hospital. So the baby had been born in a medical facility, not in the woods. Someone had access to proper care. Someone chose to bring him out here. Daniel stood, looking around at the swaying trees, at the thin bands of morning light breaking through the canopy. Somewhere between the hospital and this roadside ditch, something had gone very, very wrong. His radio crackled. Unit 3, this is dispatch. Be advised, Officer Reeves is requesting you call her. Urgent. Daniel stepped away from the text, pressing the radio to his mouth. Carla, it says Mercer. What be you got? Her voice came back tight, but vibrating with something like shock. Danny, you might want to get back here. The vet found a microchip in the German Shepherd. Okay, he said slowly. So we have an owner. That's good. Who is it? There was a short silence on the line. Then, the dog is registered under the name Sadie. Owner. Lena Ward. The name hit him like a punch. Lena Ward. The same woman from the missing person report on his desk. The same name attached to the unanswered 911 call where a woman screamed and then vanished. I am sending you the file now, Carla continued. Lena reported missing 3 days ago. Her sister said she was pregnant. Due any time. Daniel stared at the forest road, at the flattened grass where the dog had lain all night. The newborn heir's thin cry echoed in his memory. If the dog Sadie belonged to Lena, then the baby he had carried into the station might not be some anonymous, abandoned child. He might be Lena's son. Danny? Carla's voice cut back through his thoughts. You still there? Yeah, he said, exhaling slowly. I am on my way back. He turned toward his SUV, but Tony called after him. Hey Mercer, one more thing. Daniel paused. Tony walked over, holding another evidence bag. Inside was a tiny strip of paper, torn and damp, but still legible. We found this under some leaves near where you said the dog was, Tony said. Looks like it fell out of the blanket or something. Daniel held it up to the light. The letters were faint, smudged by moisture, but he could still read them. Pine Hollow General Hospital. Infant ID, 7B19. Status. The last word, the one after status, had been torn away. Could be nothing, Tony said. Could be trash, but it's from our hospital. Daniel turned the strip over in his gloved hand, feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air. Pine Hollow General only delivered a handful of babies a month. He knew the staff. He knew the routines. If that hospital bracelet slip belonged to the baby he'd just sent there, then someone at Pine Hollow General either knew exactly who that child was or had helped make sure no one did. Run that ID with the hospital, Daniel said quietly. Find out who infant 7B19 is. He climbed into his SUV, mind racing, scenes spinning through his thoughts like flickering film. The starving dog. The 4 puppies, the baby wrapped in plaid, the missing pregnant woman, the hospital tag with no status. As he drove back towards town, the first rays of real daylight spilled through the trees, painting the road in pale gold. It should have made things clearer. It didn't. At the far end of Pine Hollow, beyond the rooftops and the church steeple, the glass facade of the hospital caught the morning light and glowed like something holy. But for the first time in his career, as Daniel stared at that gleaming building on the horizon, he didn't feel reassured. He felt like the closer he got to it, the deeper he was walking into a lie. By the time Daniel pulled into Pine Hollow General Hospital's parking lot, the fog had lifted, leaving everything too bright, too clean. The glass front of the building reflected the thin blue sky, and for a moment he just sat there, hands locked around the steering wheel, watching the automatic doors slide open and shut as nurses and visitors flowed in and out like nothing in the world was wrong. But something was very wrong. Somewhere beyond those clean white walls, a file existed, an entry for infant 7B19 that said a baby was gone when Daniel knew that baby was very much alive. He forced himself out of the SUV and walked toward the entrance, the badge on his chest catching the light. Inside, the air smelled like disinfectant, coffee, and a faint trace of hand sanitizer that never quite went away. The lobby was busy, patients in wheelchairs, a janitor pushing a mop bucket, a tired-looking receptionist tapping at a keyboard. He went straight to the front desk and flashed his badge. "Officer Mercer, Pine Hollow PD. I need to speak with whoever has access to the maternity records. Now." The receptionist startled, trying to straighten the stack of clipboards on her counter. Yes, sir. Let me page someone from administration." He could feel people looking at him as he waited, the guy with the badge and the storm in his eyes. The overhead speaker crackled, paging someone to the front. A few minutes later, a tall woman in a blazer and ID badge appeared, her expression tight and practiced. "I am Diane Keller, hospital administrator. You needed access to patient records, officer." "Mercer," he said. "It's about a recent delivery, infant ID 7B19. The police department received evidence at a potential crime scene with that number on it. I need to know everything about that infant's status." For a moment, something flickered in her gaze. It was there and gone in an instant. But Daniel caught it, a tiny crack in the professional mask. "Of course," she said smoothly. "Why don't you come with me to my office?" He followed her down a quiet hallway, past framed photos of smiling babies and new parents, past a bulletin board full of congratulatory messages. They turned into a smaller corridor, more sterile and less decorative, until she opened the door to a cramped office with 2 chairs and a computer. Diane sat down, fingers flying over the keyboard. "Infant 7B19, she murmured, eyes scanning the monitor. "Admitted 3 days ago. Mother, Ward, Lena." Daniel's heartbeat picked up. "And the status?" Diane hesitated, her lips pressed into a thin line before she spoke. "Status, deceased. Cause of death listed as respiratory failure due to complications during delivery." Daniel stared at her. "That's impossible." "I'm sorry, officer," she said softly. "This is what our records show." "No," he said, stepping closer to the desk. "I carried that baby into my station this morning. He is alive. He is currently in an ambulance headed back here under the care of EMS." "That file is wrong." Diane's fingers tightened on the mouse. "Maybe there is some confusion. It could be a different infant." He slapped the plastic evidence bag down on her desk. Inside, the torn strip from the hospital bracelet stared back at them. Pine Hollow General Hospital infant. ID 7B19. Her face drained the color. Look at it, Daniel said quietly. Same ID. For the first time, she looked genuinely shaken. She glanced at the door, then back at him. I don't understand. The chart clearly says the infant died. The mother was listed as stable, and then what? Her eyes dropped to the screen, and then she was transferred. Transferred where? It just says external facility, Diane whispered. No destination listed. That S, not normal. Transfers have to be logged. Someone would be needed to sign. She stopped, staring at the bottom of the screen. Attending physician? Daniel asked. Her voice had gone flat. Dr. Howard Pike. Daniel felt the name settle in his gut like a stone. Everyone in Pine Hollow knew Pike, charming, well-spoken, the kind of doctor who smiled for community newsletters and church fundraisers. Print everything, Daniel said. The delivery notes, the transfer record, the death certificate if there is one. And I want a copy of the maternity ward security footage from the night Lena Ward gave birth. Every angle, every hallway. Diane looked at him like she wanted to argue, like she wanted this to go away quietly, but she saw something in his face that told her it wouldn't. I'll have IT pull the footage, she said. It may take a bit of IL wait, Daniel replied. On the other side of town, the Pine Hollow Veterinary Clinic smelled like wet fur and antiseptic. Officer Carla Reeves stood just inside the exam room, arms crossed, watching as Dr. Mitchell ran gentle hands along the German Shepherd S side. Sadie lay on a padded table, an IV drip in her leg, her breathing shallow but steady. The 4 puppies slept in a heated box nearby, bellies round, tiny paws twitching in dreams. How is she? Carla asked. Dr. Mitchell, grey-haired and calm, pulled off his gloves. Stronger than she looks, dehydrated, malnourished, and she's got bruising along her ribs like she took a good hit from something. Maybe a boot, maybe a blunt object, but structurally she's okay, no broken bones. He hesitated, then picked up a plastic evidence envelope from the metal tray beside him. Inside were small cotton swabs stained dark. You asked me to run a rush test on what we found under her claws, he said. There was dried blood, not her own. And human, he said. Female. I can't tell you who yet, but the DNA profile is clear. Carla exhaled slowly. So she fought someone. Looks that way, Mitchell replied. She's got rope burns around her neck too, see here? He gently lifted the fur to show the raw skin. Someone tried to restrain her. My guess? She broke loose. Carla looked at the sleeping puppies, then back at Sadie. She never left that baby, she said softly. She lay there all night in the cold to keep him warm. Mitchell's eyes softened. That baby's alive because of her. No joke. Carla stepped closer to Sadie, resting a hand on the dog's head. Sadie's eyes opened, tired but aware. Hey mama, Carla whispered. You did good. You did really, really good. Sadie's gaze drifted past her as if searching for someone. Looking for your person, huh? Carla murmured. We were working on it. Her phone buzzed. She stepped into the hallway to answer. Reeves. It's Mercer. Daniel's voice came, low and tight. The infant tag matches the baby. Hospital says he's dead. Carla frowned. What? Davy got him listed as deceased, and Lena was transferred to some external facility with no destination recorded. Pike was the attending. Carla swore under her breath. This smells bad, Danny. Yeah, he said. How's Sadie? Hanging in. Dr. Mitchell found human blood under her claws. Female, plus rope burns. She fought somebody off, then got that baby to the roadside and stayed with him. Daniel leaned against the hospital hallway wall, gripping the phone. So she fought to protect the baby, he said quietly. Maybe Lena too. There's more, Carla added. Lena's sister, Ava, just called the station. She heard a baby was found. She's on her way here. I told her to meet us at the PD. Daniel closed his eyes for a second, mind racing. Okay, I've got admin pulling records and security footage. I will head back after I talk to IT. Be careful, Danny, Carla said. If Pike's involved in something and it's big enough to fake a death record, he's not going to sit back and watch you unravel it. Wouldn't it be the first time somebody didn't like me poking around, he muttered. But there was no humor in his voice. An hour later, Daniel sat in a darkened conference room at the hospital, the blinds drawn. The only light came from the projector casting security footage onto the far wall. An IT tech named Jordan sat beside the laptop, fast-forwarding through time-stamped clips. They watched the maternity hallway nurses moving in and out of rooms, carts rolling by, quiet night routines. Here, Jordan said, slowing the footage, this is the night of the 911 call. Daniel leaned forward. The timestamp matched the emergency report. Room 7B's door was partially open. A nurse entered, then left. A few minutes later, another figure walked into frame scrubs, white coat, confident stride. Dr. Howard Pike. There he is, Jordan muttered. They watched him enter 7B. Minutes passed. The camera didn't show inside the room, only the hallway. Then something strange happened. At 2:14 a.m., the camera feed glitched. The image froze, then pixelated. For exactly 12 seconds, the screen stuttered, then resumed. Only now, when the footage came back, a second person was in the hallway, a man in dark clothing with a cap pulled low. His face was turned away from the camera. He pushed a covered bassinet, the kind they used for newborns, away from 7B toward the service elevator at the end of the hall. Pike stepped into the doorway as the man passed. He didn't look surprised. He didn't look alarmed. He just glanced down the hall, then reached up and adjusted the camera on the wall with a quick, almost casual motion. Daniel's jaw clenched. Can you zoom in on his badge? He asked. Jordan rewound and zoomed. The pixels blurred, then sharpened just enough to catch the reflection of Pike's nameplate. Howard Pike, MD. The man pushing the bassinet stayed conveniently turned away. No badge visible, no clear face. Check the logs, Daniel said. Service elevator usage around that time. Jordan typed rapidly. Here, elevator accessed at 2:15 a.m. by staff ID H. Pike. Destination, underground parking. So Pike used his card to move the elevator, Daniel said. But that's not him pushing the bassinet. Could be he gave his card to someone, Jordan replied. Or they cloned it. Either way, the system thinks it was him. Daniel stared at the flickering image. The service elevator doors slid shut behind the unknown man and the hidden baby. Do you have garage footage? He asked. Jordan shook his head. Cameras down there have been temporarily offline for weeks. Budget issues, they said. Of course they were. Daniel stood, body tight with frustration. Save that clip and send it. To my email and the department's evidence drive, he said. Do not erase or overwrite anything. If anyone asks, you're still processing it. Got it. Jordan swallowed. Got it, officer. As Daniel walked back out into the bright hospital corridor, the fluorescent lights seemed suddenly harsh. Nurses moved around him, oblivious. Visitors checked their phones. Somewhere down the hall, a baby cried a normal sound in a normal hospital. But what he'd just seen wasn't a normal. A mother listed as transferred with no destination. A baby logged as deceased and wheeled out the back door in the middle of the night. a respected doctor casually adjusting a camera right before the footage glitched. He thought of Sadie fighting against a rope leash, of human blood under her claws, of a lonely infant lying in the cold, wrapped in plaid, clinging to life beside a dog who refused to leave him. Whatever had happened in room 7B that night, it wasn't a tragic medical accident. It was a theft. When Daniel stepped into the briefing room at the Pine Hollow Police Department, he found Carla sitting at the table with a woman in her early 30s. She had Lena-esque eyes. He recognized them from the missing person photo, but hers were ringed by sleeplessness and swollen from crying. "Danny, this is Ava Ward," Carla said gently. "Lena-esque sister." Ava stood up, clutching a crumpled tissue. Did you find my sister?" Daniel shook his head slowly. "Not yet, but we found something else." He pulled a printed photo from a manila folder, an image the EMT had texted him from the ambulance. The newborn, cleaned up, wrapped in a proper blanket now, with a tiny hospital cap on his head. Ava's breath hitched the moment she saw it. She pressed a hand over her mouth. "Oh my God," she whispered. That is her baby. That is Lena's baby." "You're sure?" Daniel asked softly. Ava nodded quickly, tears spilling down her cheeks. "She sent me ultrasound pictures, photos of the 3D scan. He has her nose, that little curve on the top lip." She was so excited. "They told me she broke down, sinking back into the chair." Carla slid a box of tissues toward her. "They told me he died," Ava sobbed. "The hospital called. They said complications. They said he didn't make it and Lena needed time alone to recover. I tried to visit the next day and they told me she requested no visitors, and then they said she'd been transferred to a different facility because of her mental state. They wouldn't tell me where. They said it was confidential." Daniel exchanged a look with Carla. "Ava," he said carefully, "Lena never called you herself." "No," she whispered. "I thought she was too broken. I thought she couldn't talk. But if her baby is alive?" She looked up at him with a tremor in her voice that went straight through him. "What did they do to my sister?" Daniel pulled out a chair and sat across from her. He didn't sugarcoat it. "Not this. We don't know yet," he said. "But I believe your nephew was taken from the hospital. And I believe whoever did it tried to make sure no one ever questioned it." Ava gripped the edge of the table. Who would do that? He thought of the glitching camera, the quiet hallway, the unmarked transfer, the doctor's name on the screen. "I am going to find out," he said. She searched his face like her whole world depended on the answer. "Why do you care so much?" she asked hoarsely. "Most cops would tell me to hire a lawyer and wait for records. Why are you doing this?" For a moment, Daniel didn't answer. Behind his eyes, another hospital hallway flashed different building, different state, years ago. A tiny pink blanket, a doctor shaking his head, his wife's silent scream. "Because somebody took something from you," he said quietly. "And I know what that feels like." The room went very still. Before anyone could say more, the door opened and Captain Ramirez stepped in, a file in her hand. "We just got preliminary lab results back on the blood from the forest scene," she said, looking at Daniel. "Tony sent them through." She placed the folder in front of him. "Female," she said. "Blood type A negative, same as Lena Ward S, listed in her prenatal file." Ava let out a broken sound. Carla closed her eyes. "So Sadie fought whoever hurt her," Ramirez went on quietly, "and likely whoever hurt Lena. We don't know if Lena is dead, but we do know she bled out there." Daniel opened the folder, his jaw tightening as he scanned the numbers and notes. "And one more thing," Ramirez added. "The rope fibers found on Sadie's neck. They matched the type used in the hospital's old utility storage, same manufacturer, same weave. Maintenance uses them to tie down supply pallets. Daniel looked up sharply. So the rope used to restrain Sadie came from this hospital. Ramirez nodded once. Whatever happened didn't end at the tree line. It started here. The pieces were no longer just scattered facts, they were lining up into something uglier, something organized. A newborn logged as dead. A mother listed as transferred to nowhere. A dog beaten and tied with hospital rope, then clawing her way free. A baby carried out a back elevator in the middle of the night. Daniel pushed his chair back and stood. "Where are you going?" Carla asked. "To talk to Dr. Pike," he said. Face to face. For the first time that day, his voice held something new. Something that sounded like the sharp edge of a promise. Because if there was one thing Daniel Mercer understood better than most, it was that sometimes the only way to save what's left of a family is to walk straight into the darkest part of the story and drag the truth back into the light, no matter who tries to stop you. Daniel walked down the hospital hallway toward Dr. Howard Pike's office with a steady, controlled pace that didn't match the storm inside his chest. Nurses moved around him, patients shuffled by, but the world felt muted, like sound had been turned down to a low hum. He stopped in front of a frosted glass door. "Howard Pike, MD Obstetrics Gynecology." He didn't knock politely. He rapped twice, hard. "Come in," a smooth voice called. Pike's office looked exactly like his reputation. Warm, curated, safe. Soft lighting, family photos on the wall, diplomas framed behind his desk. A scented diffuser hummed in the corner, filling the room with a faint smell of eucalyptus. "Officer Mercer," Pike said, standing up with a practiced smile. "To what do I owe the pleasure? I heard you found a baby this morning. Incredible work." "The town is lucky to have sit down, doctor," Daniel said. His voice was calm, but it carried something that cut across the room like a blade. Pike's smile faltered. He slowly lowered himself back into his chair. "All right, what is this about?" Daniel closed the door behind him. Then he stepped forward and placed 3 items on Pike's desk, one by one. First, the plastic bag with the torn hospital bracelet labeled Infant ID 7B19. Second, a printed still image from the security footage, the blurry figure pushing a covered bassinet toward the service elevator, Pike's profile visible in the doorway. Third, a photograph of the newborn boy, taken in the ambulance, eyes squeezed shut, tiny fingers curled around the edge of a blanket. Pike's gaze moved from one item to the next. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "You signed a record saying that infant died," Daniel said. "You logged him as deceased. You logged his mother as transferred with no destination. You were on duty the night a bassinet was taken down a service hallway, and you just happened to adjust the camera right before the footage glitched. So here's my question, doctor." Daniel leaned in, both hands flat on the desk. "If that baby died, why did I find him crying on the side of a forest road this morning?" For a long moment, Pike said nothing. The clock on the wall ticked too loudly. Outside, a cart squeaked past. Finally, Pike exhaled slowly, reaching for the photo of the baby. He studied it with something that looked almost like regret. "I don't know what you think you've uncovered," he said quietly, "but hospitals make mistakes. Tags fall off. Charts get misfiled. Sometimes, in chaotic situations, things look worse than they are." Daniel didn't blink. "You sure you want to go with that?" He opened another folder and slid out a sheet of paper. "Rope fibers from a dog's neck," he continued, "matched to hospital utility rope. Human blood under that dog's claws, female, A negative, same as your patient, Lena Ward." The dog was registered to her. She was 9 months pregnant when she came in. And here's the twist, doctor. He placed another document on the desk, the elevator access log. Your card was used to activate the service elevator at 2:15 a.m., the same minute that Bassinet left maternity. Someone took that baby out of here in secret. That S not a mix-up. That S not paperwork. That S a crime. A muscle in Pike S' cheek jumped. You're accusing me of kidnapping? He asked softly. I am saying I have just enough to drag you into an interrogation room and let you sit under fluorescent lights until you decide whether you want to go down alone, Daniel replied. But I think you're smarter than that, and I think you are not the only one involved. He let the words hang there. Pike's eyes flicked to the door, then to the camera in the corner of his office. It was off, just like always. No one bothered to record the conversations of a respected doctor. This town thinks you're a hero, Daniel said. You deliver their kids. You show up in church bulletins and charity galas. You stand next to the mayor in photos and bless fundraisers. So tell me, Dr. Pike, how does a man like that sign off on a dead baby who isn't dead? Pike's shoulders sagged just a fraction. His fingers tapped against the photo of the newborn. You ever lose someone, Officer Mercer? He asked suddenly. The question landed deeper than he expected. Daniel's jaw tightened. That is not the issue here. But it is, Pike murmured, because once you know what grief does to people, you understand why some of them will do almost anything to avoid it. He leaned back, eyes losing a bit of their polished shine. There are couples, he went on, wealthy couples, influential people who can have children. They want a baby so badly it eats them alive. And there are women who are alone, abandoned, terrified, told their baby died before they ever see the body. Someone realized there was a market in the middle of those two tragedies. His voice dropped lower. I didn't create it, he whispered. I was approached, a foundation that helps place children in stable homes. Private, off the books, papers are handled, birth records adjusted. The mothers never know. Daniel felt a cold anger slide into his bones. You traffic newborns and call it charity, he said. Pike flinched. You think I feel good about this? You think I sleep at night? They started with babies who were truly abandoned, no names, no families. Then it grew. A vulnerable patient here, a desperate situation there. I told myself it was mercy. I told myself those children would live better lives than their mothers could ever give them. And Lena, Daniel asked, where does she fit into your story of mercy? Pike's gaze hardened, guilt wrestling with fear. She knew too much, he said. She heard the wrong conversation, saw the wrong face. When they told her the baby died, she didn't believe them. She wouldn't assign anything. She screamed, fought, tried to rip out her IV. They called me in. They said she was hysterical, that she needed to be sedated. He swallowed. I signed the order, he murmured. I watched them roll her down the hallway. They said she was being transferred to a psychiatric facility that specializes in postpartum psychosis. The kind of place no one asks questions about. Where? Daniel asked. His voice was ice. Pike hesitated. You want to help her, don't you? Daniel pressed. You want one thing in your rotten file that isn't covered in shame. Tell me where she is. Right now. For the first time, something like desperation showed in Pike's eyes. If I tell you, he said quietly, it won't stop with this hospital. You'll bring down people who don't lose. They own judges, politicians, boards. They'll come after me. They'll come after you. Daniel leaned in so close their faces were only inches apart. They already came after my town, he said. They came after that woman. They came after her baby. And if you think I'm the kind of man who's going to walk away because it's dangerous, then you've been reading the wrong file on me, doctor. Silence pressed against the walls. Then Pike exhaled, a long broken sound, and pulled a small notepad from his drawer. His hand shook as he scribbled an address. North Ridge Wellness Center, he said. It has not on any map. Old ski lodge off Highway 12, private road. They converted it into a rest facility for high-risk patients. No visitors, no phone calls out. Everything goes through one administrator. He tore off the sheet and slid it across the desk. Her name is on their roster under a false diagnosis, he added. Postpartum psychosis, violent tendencies, risk of harm to child. They use the paperwork to justify keeping the mothers sedated until everything is finalized. And the man with the bassinet? Daniel asked. Who is he? Pike's eyes flickered. Security contractor, ex-military. They call him Cole. I don't know his last name. He is the one who moves the babies. Works directly with the people funding this. I only see him when there's a transfer. Daniel pocketed the address. Get your lawyer, doctor, he said. You're going to need one. Because this conversation, he tapped the inside of his shirt pocket where a small recorder blinked silently. It's not just between us. Pike's face went white. You can tee. But Daniel was already walking out the door. The sun was dipping low by the time 3 unmarked vehicles crawled up the narrow, winding road toward North Ridge Wellness Center. Trees closed in on both sides, branches arching overhead, like a tunnel. In the lead SUV, Daniel gripped the wheel, jaw tight. Carla sat in the passenger seat, checking her sidearm. Sheriff's deputies followed behind, lights off, tension thick in the B cabin. The old ski lodge appeared suddenly through the trees, large, isolated, its wood siding grayed by years of snow and wind. Someone had tried to make it look peaceful. Flower beds near the entrance, wind chimes tinkling softly, a tasteful sign with the name carved into it. It looked like a retreat. It felt like a cage. Everyone knows their role, Captain Ramirez said through the radio. We go in calm, controlled, no unnecessary force. Our warrant covers all patient files, security records, and immediate access to any restricted wing. We were doing this by the book, understood? Yes, ma'am, came the chorus of replies. They parked and approached the front door, boots crunching on gravel. A woman in a cardigan and polished smile met them at the entrance. Welcome to Northridge Ramirez flashed the warrant in her face. Captain Elena Ramirez, Pine Hollow PD. Step aside, ma'am. The woman's smile faltered. There must be some kind of mistake. This is a private facility. Our patient's privacy is... You can talk about privacy after we confirm none of your patients are being held against their will, Ramirez said sharply. Where is your head administrator? A man in a suit appeared at the end of the hallway, moving quickly. I am Charles Hargrove. If this is about paperwork, we can schedule a meeting, but you can just barge in here like Daniel handed him a copy of the warrant. Yeah, he said. We can. While Ramirez and the deputies pressed Hargrove and staff in the lobby, Daniel and Carla moved down a side hallway with 2 nurses reluctantly leading them to the secure wing. Doors lined both sides, each with a small window. Through the glass, they saw women in gowns, some staring blankly, others sleeping heavily. Sedation protocol, one nurse murmured defensively. Our patients are very fragile. Or very inconvenient, Carla muttered. They reached a door with a keypad lock. Room 12A, the nurse said quietly, avoiding Daniel's eyes. That's the one you asked for. Open it, Daniel said. The door clicked. The nurse pushed it inward. Inside, on the dim light, a woman lay strapped to a bed with soft restraints. Her hair was tangled, her face pale, with dark circles under closed eyes. An IV line snaked into her arm, dripping a clear sedative. Her wristband read, "Ward, Lena." For a second, Daniel couldn't move. He'd seen this image before, in a different hospital, with a different person he loved. His lungs remembered the weight of helplessness, the way time had stretched cruelly thin. Then he stepped forward, ripping the IV from Lena's arm. "What are you doing?" the nurse gasped. "Stopping what you started," Daniel said. "Get me saline only." "Now." The nurse hurried out. Carla moved to the bedside, gently brushing hair away from Lena's face. "Lena," she said softly, "my name is Carla. You're safe now. Do you hear me? You're safe." Lena's eyelids fluttered, her lips parted, a dry whisper escaping. "Baby," her voice cracked like a rusted hinge. "Where's my baby?" The nurse returned with a bag of plain fluids, hands shaking. Daniel watched her hang it, then loosen the restraints bit by bit. "He is alive," Daniel said, his voice steady but thick. "Your son is alive. He is at Pine Hollow General. They're taking care of him. Your sister Ava knows. She is waiting for you." Tears leaked from the corners of Lena's eyes, sliding into her hair. She tried to sit up, muscles weak, but Carla gently pressed her back. "Easy," Carla whispered. "We'll get you there. But first, we're getting you out." In the hallway, voices rose. Ramirez's commands, Hargrove's protests, deputies reading rights. The facade of the wellness center cracked, revealing what it really was. A warehouse for stolen motherhood. As they escorted Lena down the corridor in a wheelchair, other women pressed their faces to their windows, eyes hopeful, confused, desperate. "We'll be back," Carla promised them, her voice catching. "We are not leaving you here." Outside, the wind had picked up, clouds rolling over the hills. Deputies led the administrator and several staff members in handcuffs toward waiting vehicles. Then, as Daniel helped Lena into the back of an ambulance, a shout rang out from the far side of the building. "Officer, stop that truck!" A dark pickup roared to life near the maintenance entrance, tearing across the gravel, fishtailing toward the access road. A man in a cap gripped the wheel, jaw clenched. Even from a distance, Daniel recognized the build, the way his shoulders hunched, the way he kept his face turned just enough to hide it from cameras. Cole. Daniel took off before anyone could tell him not to. Gravel slid under his boots as he ran, lungs burning. The truck shot forward, tires spitting stones, heading straight for the narrow road down the mountain. "Stop!" Daniel shouted, drawing his weapon. "Police! Turn the engine off!" The truck didn't slow. He fired once, aiming for the front tire. The shot echoed through the trees, a sharp crack that sent birds scattering. Rubber exploded. The truck lurched, skidding sideways in a spray of gravel before slamming to a halt against a wooden guardrail. Deputies swarmed in from both sides, weapons drawn, yanking the driver's door open. Cole was bigger up close, his face hard and sun-lined, eyes cold. He glared at Daniel as they dragged him out, fury and calculation warring in his gaze. "You have no idea what you were stepping into, cop," he spat. "You think this ends with me? With this place? You were a gnat on a windshield." "Maybe," Daniel said, "but today you hit the wrong windshield." They cuffed him, searched the truck. In the back seat, they found paperwork lists of infant IDs, coded notes, transfer dates, names replaced with numbers, lives reduced to schedules. When they put Cole in the back of a patrol car, he caught Daniel's eyes one last time. "You can watch them all," he said. You'll miss one eventually. You always do. Daniel held his stare, refusing to flinch. Maybe, he replied. But I didn't miss this one. In the days that followed, Pine Hollow felt like a town waking from a nightmare it hadn't known it was having. News broke about illegal patient transfers, falsified death certificates, and a baby placement network hidden under hospital letterhead and charitable foundations. State investigators descended on the town. The hospital board fired administrators, suspended staff, and scrubbed records under the watchful eye of law enforcement. Pike turned himself in, escorted into the station by his own attorney. He sat in an interview room across from Daniel, eyes hollow, hands folded. I'll testify, he said quietly. I'll give you names, account numbers, everything. Just make sure that boy ends up with his mother. I ruined one life. Let me help fix another. You're not doing this for redemption, Doctor, Daniel replied. You're doing it because it is the bare minimum of the right thing after a long list of wrong ones. Pike nodded, accepting the verdict in his tone. His license would be gone, his reputation shattered, but the machine he'd helped feed would finally have its gears exposed to the light. Northridge Wellness Center was shut down. Its patients relocated to real hospitals and evaluated by independent doctors. Ava became a constant presence at Lena S.'s side, fighting with a quiet, unwavering rage that surprised even herself. And Sadie, the starving German shepherd, who had refused to move from that roadside ditch, became a hero, without ever knowing what the word meant. The vet clinic nursed her back to health. Her ribs slowly vanished under proper meals. Her coat regained some shine, and the haunted look in her eyes began to soften. The puppies grew into tumbling, warm-bellied chaos, adopted out to families who promised to send pictures every Christmas. One crisp afternoon, weeks after the raid, Daniel stood on the sidewalk outside a small rental house at the edge of town. The leaves had started to turn, painting the trees in gold and red. A tricycle lay tipped over in the yard. Wind chimes rang softly on the porch. He hesitated a moment, then walked up and knocked. The door opened to reveal Ava, hair pulled into a messy bun, a tired but genuine smile on her face. "Hey," she said, "you found us." "Wasn't a hard," he replied. "Town this small, word travels faster than patrol cars." She stepped aside. "Come in." The living room was simple, but warm blankets on the couch, baby toys scattered on the rug, sunlight slanting through the windows. In the middle of the room, on a soft playmat, a baby boy lay on his back, waving at nothing. A tiny bracelet on his wrist with his new name, Noah Lane Ward. "We used Lena S' middle name for him," Ava said quietly. And Noah felt right. Survivor name, boat in a storm and all that. Daniel nodded slowly, throat tight. "It fits." From the corner, there was a soft woof. Sadie stood near the hallway, ears perked, tail wagging cautiously. She sniffed the air, stepping forward. When she saw Daniel, recognition lit her eyes. She trotted over, pressing her nose into his hand like she remembered every moment on that cold roadside. "Hey girl," he murmured, scratching behind her ears. "You did all the hard work. I just drove the car." She leaned against him, warm weight solid against his leg. A voice came from the hallway doorway. "You were the officer," Lena said. She was thinner than her sister, paler, with a faint scar on her arm where the IV had been. But her eyes were clearer than they'd been in that dim room at Northridge. She moved carefully, as if still learning how to walk on her own terms again. "You were the one who found them," she added. "Sadie and Noah." Daniel straightened. "Yes, ma am. But Sadie is the reason your son is alive." Lena looked at the dog and her face crumpled for a moment with gratitude too big for words. I told everyone she was special, she whispered. They laughed at me, said she was just a dog, but she didn't leave him. No, Daniel said. She didn't. He watched as Lena walked over to the play mat, gathering Noah gently into her arms. The baby fussed for half a second, then settled against her, cheek pressed to her shoulder. Sadie moved closer, sitting at Lena's feet, always between the boy and the door. Sometimes I wake up, Lena admitted, and I still think I am in that room. Sometimes I hear that nurse saying he died. Then I come out here and he is here. She wiped at her eyes. What do you call that? She asked softly. Luck? A miracle? Or just a cop who didn't stop looking? There were a dozen responses in Daniel's head. He thought of evidence bags and warrants and courtrooms, of systemic rot that would take years to cut out. But standing in that living room, watching a mother hold her reclaimed child with a dog standing guard at their feet, none of that seemed like the right answer. I call it a second chance, he said, for all of us. They talked for a while about upcoming hearings, about witness statements, about what would happen when the case hit the news. Ava promised she'd be loud. Lena said she'd testify when she was strong enough. When Daniel finally stepped back outside, the sky was sliding toward evening, the air cool and clean. He paused on the porch as Ava handed him a small envelope. We made this for you, she said. Me and Lena. And, well, Sadie, I guess. He opened it to find a photo. Noah sleeping with one tiny hand tangled in Sadie's fur, the dog curled protectively around him. On the back, written in Ava's neat handwriting, were 4 words. Thank you for finding us. Daniel swallowed hard. You did not have to. We did, Ava said, because I know you lost someone too. Maybe it doesn't fix that, but now you know you stopped someone else from losing everything. He didn't trust himself to answer, so he just nodded and tucked the photo into his jacket. On his way home, he took a detour. The forest road where he'd first seen the shape in the ditch looked almost ordinary now, just another stretch of gravel and dirt framed by towering pines. The morning chill had been replaced by evening shadows. He pulled over and stepped out, boots crunching on the shoulder. The wind whispered through the trees. Somewhere far off, a bird called. Daniel walked to the spot where the grass was just a little shorter, where the ground still felt different under his feet. He knelt there for a moment, hand resting on the earth. You did good, girl, he murmured, thinking of Sadie. You held a line until somebody showed up. That's all any of us can really do. He placed a small wooden marker at the edge of the ditch, carved with simple letters he'd burned himself in his garage the night before. Where she stood, God. He stepped back, hands in his pockets, and let the quiet settle in. In his mind, he saw it again. Skinny dog, 4 pups, newborn wrapped in plaid, his tiny chest rising and falling in the freezing air. He thought of the lives that had been nearly erased, of the ones still missing, of the work still ahead. But he also saw something else now. A boy named Noah, laughing in a sunlit living room. A mother who woke up from sedation and refused to be silent. A dog who never once believed that abandoning your post was an option. As he got back into his SUV and started the engine, the sky over Pine Hollow glowed with the last colors of sunset. The world was still broken in 100 different ways. The system was still imperfect, too slow, too fragile. There would always be more cases, more harm, more nights when the radio crackled with things you never wanted to hear. But today, for one family, for one child who was supposed to be a line in a file stamped deceased, the ending was different. And somewhere in a small house at the edge of town, under a ceiling fan humming softly, a baby slept with a German shepherd at his side, guarded by a dog who had already proven she would face down the cold, the dark, and the worst of humanity, just to keep his heart beating until help arrived. And that is how a starving German shepherd, her 4 tiny pups, and a terrified newborn baby changed an entire town forever. A mother dog who refused to give up, a police officer who followed his instincts, and a child who survived the impossible. Some stories aren't just stories. They are reminders that heroes can come in any shape, any size, and sometimes with 4 legs and a beating heart full of loyalty. If this touched your heart even a little, hit like, drop a comment telling us your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that stay with you long after the video ends. Thank you for watching. Stay safe and we'll meet again in the next story.